Hey everybody, Anthony Alfredo here, and today we are doing a Texas recap stream. So of course, Texas Motor Speedway this past weekend on Saturday, I competed in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, driving the number 21 Maestro Chevrolet Camaro for Richard Childress Racing. It was actually my final start of 2020 in the number 21 car, which was definitely bittersweet because we had a very successful weekend, yet it was sad for the season to be over. But very thankful for everyone who supported me this year. And tomorrow we'll have a more specific stream regarding the 2020 season as a whole, kind of recapping it, highlighting some things, talking about specific things, and answering any questions you may have, just like we're going to do today, except today is just about the Texas race, so we'll keep it at that. As many of you know, unfortunately, there weren't a lot of live streams for the last handful of races. I'd say I've missed the last 5 or so, well, not including this one. So that was kind of disappointing because I was looking back at the YouTube channel and realizing we never did a live stream or a post-race Q&A for any of those races. So I'm disappointed in myself for that, but a lot was going on, of course, and kind of high stress with uncertainties of next year and focusing on the last few races. But there's some races I'm not too concerned about highlighting, but obviously it's always positive to live stream and converse with you all live in real time and answer any questions you have about those races. So I still wish we did it, but there were some good ones we missed, just like Bristol and Las Vegas. What else? There's another really good race for us in there somewhere. Well, I guess Kansas, but we all know why we didn't have a stream that week because I was trying to rest up for this weekend. But we're gonna mix that one into this stream actually. So thank you all for the support, and great to see you in the stream. So I'd love to start answering some questions. I guess to start off, I'll kind of highlight the weekend myself, and then answer any questions you guys have. But Saturday, NASCAR Xfinity Series race day at Texas Motor Speedway, one of my favorite tracks. We raced there earlier this year, and we actually led quite a few laps. I think that was was Texas before Talladega or not? I can't remember. If it was, and that's where I led my first laps in the Xfinity Series. But nonetheless, they were definitely my first laps led at an intermediate racetrack, so that was exciting. And we had a really fast car. That was where I actually took the lead from Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain on old tires, and we're fending them off, and then had to intentionally give up the lead because we had debris on the grill, and then later on got into the fence, and our day ended early. So going back there, I had learned my lesson, and I didn't want to have that issue again. So I don't know if we were as fast as the last time we were there. We weren't quite as fast as Xfinity Internet this time around. However, our Maestro Chevrolet Camaro is definitely good enough to run in the top 5, and that's what we did most of the day. We had to start around 15th because of the flip at Kansas the week before. So just by the new starting algorithm is performance-based from the week prior. And one of the first times I'm finally in the car back-to-back weeks and don't have to be docked positions because someone else was in the car. We still had to start poorly because of that incident. However, we quickly got up to the front. We were running inside the top 5. We actually drove up to third and ran in third for the majority of stage 2, I believe it was, and kept working on the car, trying to make it better. We couldn't quite get the rotation we needed out of the car. That was probably where we lacked most of our speed throughout the day compared to the competition. I felt like we were just good enough to maintain wherever we were running. We could hold some people off, but we definitely couldn't really move forward. So restarts were where we had to make all our ground, but had great restarts all day and gained a lot of track position. So when it came down to it, we were in position at the end. Texas race was wild. For those of you who did tune in, you know there were some wild wrecks, and it was definitely a hectic race, and ultimately there was a big wreck at the end when I'm very happy Derek Nealon, my spotter, helped me make the choice to restart on the bottom, because when we did that, they all ended up wrecking up top, and we had gained some positions and stayed out of the wreck. So at the end of the race, we restarted third, I think it was, and we're running second, running down the leader with 10 to go. Kind of started to fall off, and then we just hit a cliff, and we're starting to lose a lot of speed. And the 20 car of Harrison Burton was one of the best cars all day, and I was holding him off as long as I could, but unfortunately he ended up finally just getting by me. I just didn't have the speed to hold him off, and he actually caught Noah Gragson, who was the leader, on the last lap in the final corner to win. For those of you who missed it, it was crazy to even see from the driver's seat. I was hoping they would get into it a little bit, and maybe I'd have a shot at the win, but like I said, we weren't quite fast enough to win in that situation, but it was our first top 3 of the year. So that was very exciting and something I'm really proud of, and you're not always going to have the best car in racing. That's a part of this sport, and as a driver you have to be able to adapt and make the most of your day, and be able to find speed in the car even when it's not doing what it needs to be for you to make it go fast. So you got to find another way to make it go fast, whether it's adjusting your driving style, finding a different line on the racetrack, or whatnot. So it was a fun day, and to end the season, like I said, it was bittersweet because it was my last race, but it was our best finish of the year, and it was my new career. It was a new career best finish for myself, and a best finish for the number 21 team at Richard Childress Racing this whole season. So first top 3 for the team and myself. So that was pretty cool, and we still got to go out on a high note. So I'm definitely proud of that. There's no quit in this team, and it was an unbelievable experience to be a part of it this year, and hopefully for a long-term future. And like I said, that'll be a stream for tomorrow. So now I'd open up to any questions you guys may have regarding the race. I'd love to answer them. Later, we're going to talk about Kansas, so let's keep this Texas specific for now, if you don't mind. I don't know when the cuss here is going to race, so don't ask me. Unfortunately. Hopefully soon. I figured that's why we do the live stream, because it's a good way to kill some time. Also, everyone, quick update. For those of you who know how troubling my internet connection is, because unfortunately I don't have Xfinity internet. If I did, I wouldn't have problems. I not only upgraded it, but I got a new router from Netgear, so shout out to Netgear for the new router. Thank you for that. It's their gaming router, the Nighthawk X500. It's unbelievable. Speeds have picked up tremendously, and on top of that, the upgraded internet connection and new modem I got have helped a lot too. So hopefully no more streaming issues. Thank you, everyone, for the compliments as well. All right, let's get to the questions. What was it like watching that pass happen just before the finish line? It was wild. I didn't think Harrison was going to catch Noah. Obviously, like I said, the 20 car was really fast, but the 9 had a big enough lead, and I held them off, I thought, long enough, but he ended up getting to him there in the last lap. I don't know if Noah kind of missed the exit or if he was just that much slower and Harrison caught him that quickly, but it was crazy to see from the driver's seat. I wish I was closer, though, so I could have been a part of that battle for sure. What was okay, so we'll keep, a lot of people are asking about the flip. We're going to keep the Kansas-related questions. We're going to delay those. Just save those questions for a few minutes later. We're gonna finish up Texas first. Yeah, hopefully NASCAR can get the track dry soon so they can get the race going. I think they're doing a great job. They're definitely doing all they can. There's not much you could do when it's just downpouring and Mother Nature has a different opinion on NASCAR race day. You're flying at Texas, my man. I think you opened a lot of eyes. Well, we were very fast once again, and thank you for that. I really hope so. Developing some new relationships with new sponsors and growing these current partnerships we have is crucial for me to be able to go compete full-time next season and sign a contract. Who do you think is going to win Texas if they race? I hope it's Austin Dillon or Tyler Reddick, one of my teammates. I hope they go back-to-back, sweep the Texas races, and finish 1-2 again, just like last time. Was there anything special you got to do with finishing on the podium? Yeah, there was a lot of really cool media opportunities for me. I actually, I haven't been posting. That's another thing. In addition to the post-race Q&A sessions, I also have been posting my my vital stats from my heart rate monitor after the races. And because of all the things after the Bristol race, I totally forgot about it. And I was on the plane 3/4 of the way home and realized it had been running for, I looked at it, said 5 hours and 28 minutes or something like that. So that's going to be super inaccurate. And there's not a way to trim it. You know what I mean? When I finally stop it, I can't cut it to where the race ended, in 2.5 hours or whatever. It's just the whole block. So I can still post it and just everyone can kind of eyeball where everything should have been at. But to go back to answering the question, yeah, there was a really cool Zoom call we had. I had a Zoom meeting with a bunch of media. I was on SiriusXM. I also was on SiriusXM this morning with Mike Bagley and Pete Pistone. Then I had television, the NBC interview, and hopefully all you guys got to see that, and some other really great media opportunities. And then, of course, my post-race video I always like to do, and the best part about it was my parents were there with my girlfriend too, so I got to see them, and we all flew home together. What was the biggest difference between the first Texas race and the second one for you personally? That's a fantastic question, Eddie. So the biggest thing, not only for myself, but I think for everyone, was the temperature difference. It was about 105 degrees outside last time we raced at Texas. So inside the car it was almost 140 degrees. It actually was in, I forget whose car it was that had the temperature gauge in there. This time around it was only about 50 degrees. Or maybe, yeah, I think so. So it was about 50 degrees cooler. So it's easier as a driver as far as the heat goes. You can stay cooler. However, you're going much faster because the track has a lot more grip, so it's still more difficult for you physically. And on top of that, one of the hardest parts is the balance in the race car. There's so much more grip, you're able to go faster. Because the track is more grip, the tires like it, but you can still build. That tires don't wear as much, but they build the heat still. So you got to combat that and find the right balance in your race car. And on top of that, the PJ1 traction compound they put down is heat activated. So when it's much cooler out, people don't get up in it right away because it takes the cars running in it to generate that heat. When it's already really hot out, it comes in very quickly. Last time we were there, I think I started 12th and I was in 5th in one lap because I just went right in the stuff and it had plenty of grip. Not 100%, but just call it 85 to start, and it worked up to 100 very quickly. But this time around, no one really started running in it until around stage 2. What's the hardest part about racing at Texas? Another great question. So Texas has two completely different ends of the racetrack. Turns 1 and 2 is very flat entry to 1. You can fight loose in there where the car kind of skates into the corner. You could be very tight or loose on exit because it's so flat. And then 3 and 4, you could be very tight or very loose because it has so much banking. It's a very, very fast corner, one of the fastest in NASCAR. So at an intermediate track, of course. So what happens is when you try to make an adjustment on the race car, what you do to fix an issue in either turns 3 and 4 or 1 and 2, or just say you try to, I'll make a better example. If you try to fix the balance to make turns 1 and 2 better, whatever change you made is usually 2 times that in turns 3 and 4 because you're going faster and there's much more load. With the current conditions, do you think NASCAR could run the Texas road course if it's continued to be rain delayed? Probably not, because I don't think they don't have rain tires down there, and they don't have road course cars either. They all have oval cars. Plus, they started the race on the oval. What did you need to catch the 9 car when you were running second late at Texas? So that's another, I appreciate the question, Gibby, and that's another thing that I wanted to mention from earlier is you're not always going to have the balance you need, and you need to make speed in the car, but sometimes you just can only make so much speed, right? So we were definitely lacking some rotation, especially in turns 1 and 2, and even in turns 3 and 4, but running the traction compound a couple lanes off the bottom, I could still find and make some speed. However, in 1 and 2, where it's much flatter, the car was tight, meaning I had a lot of wheel turned into the, a lot of steering input in the car, and it was very difficult to turn. So what happened was I was scrubbing speed or having to slow the car down too much compared to some of the cars that could rotate faster, just like the 9 and the 20. The 20 was even better than the 9. I think the 9 and I were almost equal because I was reeling them in for a little bit, and then I kind of started to get tighter and tighter, and then eventually it was just a really big drop off, and we started struggling there. So just a little bit more rotation, I think, but all in all, like I said, still an awesome day to finish top 3 in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. That's no joke. It's a tall order, and not something that's easy for a part-time rookie. What's it like advocating for type 1 diabetes and working with Jdrf? So it's incredible for a multitude of reasons. Number one, because it's very important to me and has a sentimental reason, I guess, behind it. Because my cousin Morgan was diagnosed at a very young age, and now her sister Caroline actually is also diagnosed. They're both type 1 diabetics, and my girlfriend Emily is a type 1 diabetic. So there's a personal reasoning behind all that makes it even special, and that was a relationship I started or had with Jdrf. Very unique partnership, and we get to do some cool things and brand advocacy, as you mentioned. Now it started long before I even met my girlfriend Emily, so that was just I don't believe in coincidences, and it was just one of those crazy things that happened. But that's why it makes it even more personal to me, and it's special because there's a lot of people fighting type 1 diabetes, and people don't realize. I enjoy helping educate others about it because I've learned so much about it firsthand, more than I ever thought I would, and realized things that I never even knew about it that are pretty wild, and people don't realize how crazy it actually is. Thoughts about the Bristol Dirt Race next year? It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. Any more Texas questions? Notice that Texas, they had most of the turn sprayed in PJ1. Does the PJ1 really give you more grip in the turn? Still see a lot of people running outside the PJ1 areas. So, Sean, to answer your question, they did spray PJ1 in turns 1 and 2. It goes from about the second and a half to third lane all the way out to the wall. Usually don't get very high up. Usually just run probably the first lane of it, ideally. If you get any higher than that, there's a lot of rubber buildup and film and dust and things like that the jet dryers blow down or the blowers blow down into it and it sticks to it. So when you get too high, it's like being on ice. Very difficult to turn. So there's only a certain section that's cleaned off enough for you to use. It does have more grip. As I was talking about before, it's heat generated or heat activated. So the more heat that's generated and activates it even more, the stickier it gets, the more grip it has. And they actually do a mu test after the tire dragging goes over it, before and after each race, and you can actually see how much more grip it has in the regular surface. And it's usually probably, I think it's anywhere from like 5 to 10% more grip. It's actually quite a bit. Pretty interesting. I'm also certain that when the Cup race finally starts, because of all the rain they've had, all the rubber's been washed off. So when you saw the Cup race start the other day, it was after the truck race, and the Xfinity race was the day before, and there's plenty of rubber laid down. The PJ1 was activated. Well, now it's a green racetrack again, so it's going to be more like the Xfinity race I ran, where at the start of the race there's no rubber laid down. So a lot of guys are probably going to start the race running outside of the PJ1 as rubber builds up, maybe work up into it, and as rubber gets laid down in the PJ1 and it generates heat and develops more grip, more drivers will run through it for sure. How is the custard after Kansas? Oh, I had some Andy's frozen custard just the other day because celebrating the end of the season and our first top 3 finish, and it was delicious. How slick is the PJ1? The track is cool. I know people were struggling to keep it straight in it. It is definitely very difficult to keep it straight in it when it's new, because number one, when there's no heat, it doesn't have any grip. When there's no rubber in it, it doesn't have any grip. So to start off, it's slick and it's kind of gooey and slippery, much like at Bristol when they put it on the bottom. Everyone has to run in it, right, because it's the best way, but it's very slippery. So you kind of just get faster and faster and faster the more grip it builds as the race goes on. And when it's cooler, like how cold it's been in Texas, and I mentioned before with it raining and washing the rubber off, it's not going to have much grip to start. It's going to take some cars going up there and tires laying rubber down through it. Thought you were going to win Texas for a bit there. Awesome run, though. Thank you. Daily driver. My daily driver is a GMC Sierra pickup truck. It's a 2011. Would you prefer a loose or tight race car? Loose all the way. I really, really dislike having a tight race car because it's so difficult for me to make speed with a tight race car, not only because of my driving style, but because, in my opinion, in general, when you have a tighter race car, as long as you can handle a freer race car, you can manipulate it in a lot more ways to make speed. But when you're tight, you're kind of just scrubbing speed, and if you're not, you're having to overslow the car to make it turn the way you need it to. But when it's loose and it's kind of over rotating, you can still compensate in some ways to make speed out of the car, at least for me. Let me drop this in the chat real quick for someone asking. First sponsor that started your NASCAR career. One of my first sponsors was Equicycle, and they were on my... I actually have a picture somewhere up here. Oh, it's right there. Equicycle was on my limited late model and Blackgate Farm. When I was racing for Leaf Falk Racing, that was my first year racing. What's up, Jinx? Jinx asks, how accurate is Texas with Xfinity and iRacing compared to real life? And congrats on third. Thank you, Jinx, number one, for the compliment. I appreciate that. And to answer your question, they could be different. You know, a lot of it on iRacing is the setups, right? You run fixed setup stuff often, and there's you know, they're built a certain way, but you can build a custom setup on iRacing that drives pretty realistically. Or is that a word? Realistically? It drives pretty realistic. That's what I meant to say. So you can definitely make things feel more realistic. And I will say, with Texas in itself, Texas is probably the closest on iRacing that I've experienced. One of the closest by far. I will say that recently they did a tire model update. I think it was. There was some sort of update that added a lot more grip. So this time around, the track had a little bit more grip than I think, or I would say it had in real life. But they're, like I said, they're pretty close. And if you build your own setup and run in an open race, you can definitely make it feel realistic. But some of the fixed setups feel pretty different. How cool is the air going in your helmet? This is a really good question. So the helmet is cooled about 20 degrees from the outside air temperature. So when it's 50 degrees outside, it probably just, at that point, it might only get down to just say, I don't know if it's 40 degrees. It might only be 50 degree air, but it feels very cool. But when it's much hotter outside, like when it's 105 degrees, it's really not that cool. It's just blowing, 10 to 20 degrees. So just call it 85 degree air on your head. It's not cold, but it helps keep you cool enough to kind of keep your head relatively dry and allow you to stay focused. All right, everyone. Well, that's going to wrap up all the questions regarding my race at Texas Motor Speedway this past weekend in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And that was my final one of 2020, closing out the year at Texas Motor Speedway. There's 2 races left in the season, but I will not be running in them. And I want to thank you all for the support, and I hope you all enjoy. I appreciate your questions, and I'm looking forward to doing this again sometime.